Welcome to the Villa Pride Down Under podcast, an Aston Villa supporters podcast brought to you from Australia. This week, we're joined by our usual Ryno, and we have a guest with us. It's Neil from the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. Neil, thanks a million for joining us.
No bother, guys. Thanks a million for having me on. Whatever time it is down there for you guys in Australia. I'm only stretching the legs here. It's only morning time here for me, so...
Just before we get going, I just wanted to give our own Tess a quick mention. Tess unfortunately couldn't make it tonight. I don't know if people have heard, but obviously there's a massive cyclone heading for land in Brisbane. So the north of New South Wales and the south of Queensland. So thankfully they've had a couple of days preparation, but it's obviously a worrying time, and Tess is busy looking after the family. And luckily the state government over there doing a great job at the moment, giving free the free sandbags to everybody and all that, but it is a scary situation over there at the moment. So I just like to say, particularly our own Test, but to all the families in Queensland and northern New South Wales, we wish you the best of luck, and let's hope that it doesn't inflict the damage that some are predicting at the moment. So that's why Test couldn't make it tonight. He would have been here otherwise. But we do have Neil all the way from another stormy part of Ireland, the west of Ireland. Neil, thanks very much for joining us. Now, we usually start with a little run over the game during the week, like the Bruges game, but we're going to do it a little bit backwards tonight because we know we only have you for a short while. So we're going to jump straight on today to the Brentford game and kind of get your thoughts on that, Neil, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, look, Brentford are a funny old team, and I mean that in a kind of good way. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Like, Brentford could be anything they want to be one week, and then the next week, you know, they tend to peter out, and we kind of seen that over the course of the season. They came out of the traps absolutely flying, scoring goals like in the first 3-4 minutes. They had some ridiculous record. The Brian Mbeumo was being talked about, 70-80 million pound signing for insert big massive club here, you know, and Vissa, obviously, who is one of the most underrated players in the whole Premier League. You know, when he's on a purple patch, he just scores for fun as well. And those two guys were scoring with their eyes closed, and the club was looking really good, and they were playing brilliant. And Damsgaard is an excellent player, and Norgard and all those guys, those Danish guys that they have in midfield. But then you roll on towards March, they're still in the hunt for potentially like 7th place and so on, but their form is a bit more patchy. I think I read today that they haven't won in 6 games. So this is Brentford in a nutshell. It's kind of Brentford nearly every year as well. They've got massive purple patches where they go on huge long runs, and then they've got other barren spells. But saying that, they're a team that we've never really had any stability against. Like their form, we could go and beat them 4-0 like we did in the Aaron Danks game, or we could go there and be 2-0 up, end up being 3-2 down, and have to score in the last minute to draw 3-3. So they're a team we have. They're a Jekyll and Hyde team that always perform Jekyll and Hyde against us whenever we play them. So I'm never I never feel confident. I always have a tension whenever we come up against Brentford, because they're so feast or famine, you know. And against us, those games are usually wild whenever we played them. Like, something out of the ordinary will happen, so they're impossible to predict.
Yeah,
and they're a little bit like us. A little bit opposite to us, though, aren't they? Like, their home form has been really poor, and their away form has been really good, and it's obviously a contrast to us. So that's going to be a bit of an interesting one, isn't it? Us playing away after a few duvals over in Belgium. We'll see how we pull up after that. And away as well, we haven't been the best, but they haven't been great at home either. So it's an interesting matchup, I think, this week.
Yeah, I think I will.
No, go on,
Mark. No. I was just saying, I think so.
I was going to say the one thing I do like about this match, and the same with the Brighton away game coming up, is that when they're at home, Brentford and Brighton are not two teams that will sit in. Brentford will open up, which is kind of suits us. I think if this was Villa Park, Thomas Frank would just park the bus, take his point, move on, you know, which we know it doesn't really suit us at the moment. But Brentford at home, they actually started the season really strongly at home. I think they were one of the highest points at home, and then I think they lost one game, and it just kind of went south very quickly at home, their home form. But there was a period, I think they had the best home form out of the top 5 leagues in Europe. In the first, around November there, I think they had 21 points in the league, and like 19 of them had come at Brentford. And then, as Ryan said there a while ago, then they suddenly hit a patch where they couldn't get a point at home for loving their money. So it's but Thomas Frank, he's not going to set up to sit deep, especially when they're so close to us in the table. Thomas Frank's going to see this as an opportunity to leapfrog us. So I don't think he's going to try and sit in and take the point, because they need to come and kind of take the 3 points, I think, because their away form is poor enough as well. Like, so hopefully that will suit us. What do you think, Neil? Do you think the openness of the game at the GTEC will suit?
I hope so, because like they've got a pretty decent bill of health. Well, I won't say they got a pretty decent bill of health. They've got tons of players out injured, but what I'm talking about is that, like, in their striking positions, in their forward positions, like, they're going to have Mbuemo, they're going to have Vissa, they're going to have Shade, they're going to have Damsgaard, they're going to have that Ukrainian kid, Yarmoluk, I think is how you pronounce it. I know he's kind of moved back further in the field. I think he could even play 6. Maybe unlikely, but he might play back there. And then they're going to have Vitaly Yanlet in there as well. So, like, the core of their first 11 is going to be there, and their big players, the players they spent lots of money on, the players they've relied on, are going to be there. So, when you talk about openness, they will play in that open fashion. They will try and get it wide to Shade. They will try and get it wide to Mbuemo. They will try, like, Vissa will cause problems up top again. And, you know, every time I watch Damsgaard against Villa, I always come away from it going, Jesus Christ, I'd love to have him in our team. But then I watch him against other teams and I'm like, is it just the way Villa play that kind of gives him that space and that openness to be able to play? So, you know, like you said, we will see at the weekend if he's dictating pace again. You can be damn sure that the game is going to be open. But, you know, their defense is obviously going to be tight as well. They usually play with the almost like 3 centre halves, whether it's in a 4, whether it's in a 3. Ayers might be pushed out to the right. One of my personal favourites, Nathan Collins, in there, who I've given up on lobbying Aston Villa to sign him at this stage. The time to sign him was when he was moving from Stoke, but he's in there at centre half, and they're going to have the evergreen Pinnock inside there as well. Seems to just be there with them for donkey's years, even though I know he's not that old. You know, that's the way they're going to set up with Flecken in goals as well. So I think you're right. I think it's going to be open. I think Lewis Potter will be given a license to go forward, maybe Shade or Mbuemo tucking in, depending on what side that they play on. And you know, that 3 then, like Aston Villa, will form that that will be the 3 that will stay at home and will try and marshal Ollie Watkins. But, you know, we're talking about the openness that the Brentford are going to bring. It's almost impossible to think about how open the game is going to be depending on how we're going to play, because, like, everybody every week is saying, yeah, today is the day we're going to see Asensio, Rashford and Rodgers play up top, and then you see Bailey, Ramsey and Rashford and Rodgers, and then you're kind of going, okay, well, we bring those guys on at 60 minutes. So I think we'll contribute to the openness of the game, or to the tightness of the game as well, based on what our formation and our setup is going to be.
The Mikkel Damsgaard, like he played in the World Cup. There was a couple that when Denmark played really well, they took played to England in the semi-final. And I remember when he signed for Brentford. I think he was at Sampdoria, and he was at the start, and I was like, this lad's going to be class, great signing. But he was very quiet for his first season, but this season he's kind of come alive in the Premier League. It's taken him a little bit to find his feet, but he's been excellent, man. Really good. Like they have some very good players, Ryan, don't they? Like every time I watch him, before obviously we signed the likes of Asensio and Rashford, I remember looking at Mbuemo and thinking, he'd be a lovely little signing. Like something we don't get much of goals from deep, like, you know?
And they've done really well, haven't they? And quite a few of the players, they've been there for a fair bit of time now, like Neil's saying. You look at some of those names and they've spent a fair bit of their career at Brentford, but they've got that knack of picking up these players, you know, quality players from the, you know, maybe lower leagues in Europe, or, you know, more obscure teams. And then they sort of develop them, and then, they turn them into quality Premier League players. And Brentford have been a really good team for a few years now in the Premier League, really settled in there. And I think Thomas Frank's done a fantastic job with what he's had at his disposal, and always competing for Europe, always a hard team to beat, and always, like Neil's saying, whenever we play them, it's always a tough game against them. And they're physical, but they can play a bit as well. They've got the best of both for me. They've got the big guys in there, you know, Damsgaard's them with the skills, and Wissa and Mbuemo, you know, these quick, nippy players. So it's going to be a tough one for us. And, you know, defensively, you're going to have to be on top of those guys. Otherwise, it could be a long afternoon.
We spoke about this. Sorry, Nick, go on.
I like what you said there, Ryan, as well. You know, you said that they've done a great job in scouting, because Brentford were Brighton before Brighton were Brighton. You know, and that'll tell you how long Brentford are kind of, in a way, I think it's fair to say how long they've how they've stabilised themselves within the Premier League. You know, a lot of smaller clubs from in and around the London area, the Watfords and those, have come up and they've been yo-yo teams, really. Brentford have come here, they've stayed here because they've got an absolutely wicked manager. He's really good manager. And he just buys into the philosophy. But you're like that. Brentford were the Brighton of Scandinavia and Central Europe. That's where they were the Brighton of. Whereas Brighton have been the Brighton of South America and have just hoovered up everything in South America and made their money that way. But I suppose the biggest thing here is that, you know, and it goes to show, I suppose, about football in from 2020 onwards, that, you know, your Moise Caicedo and your Belabas and all those guys that are playing for Brighton and stuff, they've got that small bit of je ne sais quoi about them, as opposed to like the Christian Norgards, who will be injured for this game, and he's somebody who always plays brilliant for Aston Villa as well, or against Aston Villa, should I say. I don't know, there's something more sexy about a South American player that comes in and is able to dictate play over a Danish player that can do it. So, you know, Brighton have reaped the rewards for that. But I suppose in other ways, Brentford have reaped rewards on it, because their stability within the Premier League has never really been in question. So, you know, one is financial and one is, I suppose they're both financial by keeping their Premier League places, but one is in the sale of players, and the other one is the stability that it brings, like you said, the amount of time that those players have been with the club.
Yeah, but I think Brighton and Brentford, the thing that I like most about them is the fact that they made sure they were stable before they went to this model. Like, they got up into the Premier League, but they made sure they stayed there. And that's a mistake I think a lot of clubs are making now. They're trying to almost fast forward themselves to like play, like you look at Southampton, they're trying to play out from the back all the time. Like, just stay up for a season or two and then build to that. And that's where Brighton and Brentford got it really right, I think. They knew where they were. They knew where they were in the food chain. They came up. They just made sure they stayed in that league the first season or two. You know, as you said, they didn't become that yo-yo team. And then they started getting really clever recruitment and going to where they wanted to be, particularly Brighton. I think Brighton put a lot of fight into staying up in the first season or two. And yeah, they're really good run clubs. And it's nice to see the likes of Brighton, Bournemouth, Brentford, all of them in around up with us. And yeah, it's good. It's good and refreshing for the league. And as you say, Mark, about Thomas Frank.
Exactly. I think you were getting onto it there. It helps when you keep your manager.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, spoke about Watford there. You get 10 weeks as manager for Watford, and if you haven't won the league in 10 weeks, you get sacked. And I think, look, a lot of teams like Southampton and stuff, sometimes the trigger is a bit like people have a hair trigger. In that instance, like if you're being a bit of a yo-yo team, sometimes it's best to keep your manager to build for that stability. So yeah, I agree with you on that one for sure.
Just with the team, Ryno. Like I know me and you spoke last week about Bailey getting a full 90 minutes, which meant he'll probably not start against Bruges. And in the very end of it, we were like, we've been wrong before. Emery will probably drop Asensio on Bailey.
Yeah,
and that's what happened. But do you expect it to be kind of similar to what started the other night, or do you expect it?
I think there'll be changes, to be honest with you. I think it was good against Bruges to see a couple of those players back on the bench, like Pau Torres, Boubacar Kamara. We're starting to see a bit of the squad come back now, which is good. I don't see those two starting myself, but I think the defence will change a little bit. I'm thinking Cash will come in, Disasi, Konza, and I think you'll go with Ian Maatsen again. I think you'll change it up. I think you'll start resting a couple of the guys who played in midweek and sort of freshen it up a little bit. Leon Bailey, I think, might get dropped. I'd love to see Asensio and Rashford start. I just feel like those two, you said in the last pod, for me, they're undroppable. And then obviously when I woke up and saw that he dropped Asensio for the Bruges game, I was like, what's going on? But then I did hear he'd had a knock, so I wasn't too disappointed after I did that. But for me, those two complete game changers, aren't they? And just the two players that an away game like this at Brentford, they could probably have those moments or that, do that little bit of something that just opens the game up or score a goal. So I think you'll go Rodgers, Asensio and Rashford, and then obviously Ollie Watkins. And I do think it'll be McGinn and Tielemans in the midfield, even though both are probably blowing out their ass after playing a lot of minutes recently. Good to see Kamara coming back, but I'm not sure he'll risk him with a start just yet. Like I say, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors and how he's tracking, but I would say you'll probably get minutes off the bench again for me.
Neil, just with that, what Ryno was saying about Kamara there, I think everybody knows Kamara's my favourite player on this team. I think the whole team is built to function around him, and we miss him dearly when he's not there. And that's no disrespect to John McGinn. I think John McGinn was excellent for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Ryno, we talked about it often on the podcast there. I think Emery's going to see this as a big opportunity. Finally, give one of them a rest in midfield they've needed. I think it'll probably be McGinn to take a break and Kamara come in, because I think from here on in he's going to want Kamara full fitness, playing 90 minutes. Out of all the injuries that came back last year after the ACLs, Kamara was the one who nailed down his place almost straight away. 2 substitute appearances, and then he was back until he got injured. What do you think about that, Neil? Do you see Kamara coming back into function this team, because he is so important?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think he's going to come in. I think he's going to play. He's going to start from the start. I think that we won't see both Rashford and Asensio at the weekend. I think we won't see Leon Bailey. Actually, we might see Leon Bailey, but what I still think he might even play McGinn further forward. I think it could be a case whereby McGinn ends up being in the number 10 or out wide right or whatever. Be interesting to see if that experiment is over now that we're stocked with players who can play in those positions. We also have Daniel Malen as well. So it for me, I suppose, look, what I think will happen here, and I'm just positing kind of potentials there. I think Kamara is going to come in. I think McGinn is the man who's going to take a step out of the team just to give him a rest. Tielemans has played nearly every single minute for Aston Villa this year. So I would, if we had an Onana and a Barkley, I wouldn't have been surprised to see Onana and or Barkley and Kamara play there. Just to give him a rest. Not that we want to be resting anyone against Brentford, but we've got those options. We've got options where we can play Malen as right wing there, or even play him up top if you wanted to give Watkins a rest. Garcia in at right back, even though Cash is back. Cash was pivotal for us, I think, against Bruges. But even with Garcia, I think Garcia's had a week off. Play him in at right back. We've got, in a way, we were all kind of scratching our head and going, oh, they've dropped 2 players out of they've left 2 players out of the Champions League team. And now you're kind of going, but that's 2 fit and ready players that can come in here that haven't got those minutes in their legs for Premier League duty, and we could see that we could reap that reward, provided that Malen is fit again and isn't still ill, because if he had the dose of a cold that I had, it's a nightmare. It takes you about 4 weeks to get over it. But be nice to have those 2 guys back, maybe play them both there on the right hand side, and you've got that impetus, you've got that fitness, you've got that fresh legs on that right hand side that you can have a right good go down there at Lewis Potter, pin back Sade there, and then obviously if you wanted to go with Asensio essentially, and maybe Morgan Rogers on the left hand side, or Rashford, give Rogers a break, put Rashford over there as well. You also have Digne and Rashford then that could go hell for leather then on the left hand side too, and it makes us unpredictable, I suppose, in the sides that we can attack from. So look, it's a brilliant problem to have, and it's only going to get better when we start talking about midfield partnerships when Onana and Barkley are fit and everyone's back in the team then.
Right now, just in the comments there, Mark says, because Malen and Garcia are unavailable in Europe, I'm thinking you and I will give them a start. I actually think he might protect Matty Cash in this game, and I think Garcia may start, because I think we do need Cash for during the week. I think that you could see the difference after Emery made the quadruple substitution, where the difference it made, the width we got out of it. And that was no knocking to Sassy. He done the role he was asked to do, but obviously the quadruple changed the shape, and I think that's a good point from Mark. I think Malen might come in and start up. I hope Malen comes in, because I do think he deserves a few minutes, because he's he might, there's no denying it. He must be scratching his head, this whole thing has been a bit of a whirlwind for him. And when he has gotten a pitch, he's impressed. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him start up top. But Garcia at the right back from me, because I think Cash is kind of finding it hard to string 3 or 4 games together at the moment. He's always picking up little soft tissue injuries. So we don't have a replacement for him for that kind of shape in the Champions League. So I think he might be protected a little bit, especially with not too many league games coming after, and Garcia can play in the league and the FA Cup. Not saying it's for the rest of the season, but just for this little period now. Because Cash is breaking down a lot quicker than he has in previous seasons, and when he comes back and plays. Tielemans needs a rest. Do you think he'll get it, lads?
I don't think so. I don't know if there's anyone who can come in for him at the moment, is there? And he's so important for us, and has had unbelievable season so far. Like Neil's saying, though, I think Barkley and Onana are still a few weeks away, aren't they? And Barkley would probably be the natural one to come in for me, but I can't see how you can take him out of the team at the moment. He's too important, and I think they'll probably just run him into the ground until further notice, till they can get someone back in there.
Now, Neil, I know you're in a bit of a rush to go, but so talk away till you're ready to go.
I'm actually not too bad. I can.
Oh, happy days.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, that's good news. I just want to quickly run through the comments here, lads, because James, Mark, they're always in the comments for us, and we have another new guy in today, which is I'm familiar with Sharma's podcast. I've seen him on the Forever Villains Facebook page. So quick comments there. James says, "Good day, lads." Mark Smith, "Good day, lads. Good to see you." Mark Smith sending our thoughts to Tess and his family. We've covered that. I think that was very important. And then we have another Villa podcast by Gig Sharma. "Hey Neil, I hope you're well, mate." So they're following you around, mate. And then
Gigs is one of the good guys.
And James says, after Ty playing so well Tuesday night, hopefully we see him in Konza again Saturday to play. Do you think they'll play Mings that close again on thing, or do you think he'll be held off to Wednesday?
No, I think he plays. I think he plays with Konza. I personally would a bit iffy about Dissect playing right back. Look, he's had we've got no sample set there as well there with regards to that, but our best centre half partnership is Ty and Konza. Dissect was brought in as emergency cover essentially, and he's a bloody good emergency cover to have on loan. So we're going to probably see Dissect who could cover right back, and you might even see Cash not even in the squad for this game at the weekend. Or Lamar Bogart probably more likely not even on the squad for this game at the weekend, and see what happens from there with McGinn on the bench. But yeah, go with Ty and go with Konza, Garcia and Dina, and have the two lads then ready to be sprung if they need it, Pau Torres and Dissect, because you can't take Tyrone Mings out again. I know people say playing 90 minutes in quick succession. It's not really quick succession. It was Tuesday and it was Saturday, so there's 4 days. Essentially, it's 3.5 days in between. So I say play him.
Yeah, and but again, with Dissect not available for the FA Cup, you're kind of thinking, will he come in for the league game? There's so many competitions now and so many variables, but it's really good. It's good. How often are we at this point of the season talking? We were at this point of the season last year, and we knew exactly who was going to be playing in the league and exactly who was going to be playing the conference because there was nobody else. So this is a nice position to be in, and I think this is what Emery's been waiting for a long time. And
100%.
Yeah, and
Ryan on there, mate.
Ryan, with this game, I think I feel like I'm saying this every week, but this is must win, yeah. If we're for declining in the league, Neil, would you agree?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I was looking at, and look, it's not like me to get kind of, I won't say defeatist, but me, it's always a case of until we're mathematically out, I think we can qualify. But about a week ago, I did have a bit of a wobble, and I said, no, I think we can get 5th place. But the great Justin Hawthorne has reinvigorated my hope and my optimism again, because he was doing a piece, but it all pivots on us winning at the weekend. We're 2 points behind. So he marked out how we could have got to 63 points, which he thinks will get us 5th place. And I think that's a pretty good marker for 5th place. And some people might disagree, but if we lose this game, we're 5 points behind where that prediction would be, and that's a lot to be able to pull back on, considering some of the games we have coming up. So this is for all the marbles, I think, and so a lot of these games going forward, specifically when we don't have one from 8th of March until I think it's next game then is in April, so
2nd of April,
2nd of April. So you're talking about 3 weeks without a Premier League game. Obviously, there's international breaks in there as well, but you want to go in there with this win, being on 44 points, staring down or staring up at the teams that you're trying to chase, as opposed to losing this and then looking down at Brentford and going, well, 11th place is only 1 point behind us as well here, so winning this one going into that break is pivotal, because then it allows us then to have a fresh mind to attack Bruges again next Wednesday, because that ain't a gimme, even though we're 2 goals up in that one. And then we obviously have Preston then away in the cup before we come back to Premier League duties again. So take care of business on Saturday for sure.
Ryan, looking at the fixtures though, where we're sitting in the table at the moment, can't change where we are. This is where we are. But when you look at the fixtures, you couldn't actually handpick the fixtures better for us. They're all teams around us. If we can string a run together, we can reel teams in. In the next 6-7 games, you've got Brentford, Brighton, Forest, Newcastle, Man City. I mean, it's on us. And
Yeah.
of course, you look all season that, oh yeah, but everyone's saying, oh, we can't string a run together. But we know we can string a run together. I'm not saying we will, but we know we can. Emery's shown in the past he can. And do you think this is the time now that maybe that the shackles are going to be released a little bit and we are going to start going out fighting fire with fire? Do you think this is where he's been waiting? This is why Asensio and Rashford came in. He knows the defence right, we're going to concede goals. Let's sign them all. He has Malin, Rashford, Asensio. Is he going to release them all of them now and just go out and try and win the game? Or do you think it's going to be...
This is massive couple of weeks for us now, isn't it? Like you say, the game against Brentford this weekend, Bruges at home, in the quarterfinals again against Preston. Like, this is huge. And for me, I haven't seen a Premier League season like this where the top teams, or the teams chasing Europe, I should say, have been so inconsistent. You've seen teams that have just flown out the blocks, but then starting to stutter a little bit. I think everyone there can beat each other on their day. And there's a lot of football to be played yet, isn't there? A lot of points to be won and lost. So for me, this one is pivotal. We have to win this, and probably a draw is probably not even good enough for me for this one. I really think we need to get the 3 points, get us into a good headspace, like you say, to attack Bruges, Preston, and then get on to the other games. But a lot of football to be played, a lot of teams fighting for it, and a lot of inconsistent teams in there, and teams who are sort of, I don't know, they look like they will beat us one week and then losing to someone the next week. You look at Forest, they're having a little bit of a wobble now. Brighton have just sort of picked up again and starting to win. Newcastle, a couple of ropey results here and there. So it's all to play for, but this is a huge game away. And I hope the shackles are off. And like I said, I would love to see Rashford and Asensio out there on the weekend. Pretty gung-ho, but I think needs must get the goals and get the win for me.
Neil, there's one in the comments here for you, a new listener. So welcome, Steve Brynard. Thank you for joining the stream here. He says, guys, should we be worried about Kamara not signing a new contract and leaving on a free like he did when we got him? Neil, we need your wise words.
Do you know what? I've got this affinity with Kamara because I did a kind of a scouting series on him before he was even on Villa's radar. And next thing, all of a sudden, then everybody was coming to me going, he's after signing for Villa. And I was like, oh, crap, I'm after catching the car here. I was like the dog that caught the car. And I was like, oh, shit. But so I do have an affinity with him from that point of view. But he's, look, how would I put this? I suppose in the PSR era, like signing extensions and stuff like that, I don't know how contracts work, and the club will be looking at. Yes, we will sign him to a new contract, I think, because we protect the value of our players. But what might we have to put into the contract to sweeten it for Kamara to sign so he doesn't leave on a free like he did for Marseille? I don't know what that will be. So may it be a situation whereby, yes, he signs a new 4-year contract. We see him hold up the shirt with the pen in his hand. And next thing then, come June or July, we find, but he's allowed to go to a Champions League team for 50 million. And you're kind of going, oh, it's Dougie Luiz all over again, or it's Fabian Delph all over again, where we get excited about the contract being signed. I would say the club are in loads of negotiations with him at this moment in time. He's 24 years of age. He knows he's a bloody good player. He knows that he's probably the most similar player to the likes of Rodri and those within the league, and he knows he's going to be well sought after. If it's not in France, if it's not, it's going to be in England. But that isn't to make the whole situation sound negative. I think Aston Villa's prolonged progress, or at least putting European seasons back to back, I think would be huge for him. Like if we were to end up in the Europa League, even or to win silverware this year, I think it would make give us the opportunity to re-sign him. Also, we've bringing in the likes of Asensio or Rashford. He might sit back and go, wait a minute, are they only here for 6 months, or are they going to stay around? So there's a lot of things I would say in his determination about signing the contract. Villa will offer him brilliant terms. They always do. In fact, sometimes Villa will overpay their players. We've seen that. We've given out about it before. And also, I think as well, don't forget, Villa are still paying an absolute massive chunk to Philippe Coutinho to sit in the beach in Brazil. So maybe once that comes off the balance sheet, thinking about PSR, thinking about squad cost ratios, it's all the stuff that we hear about that, I'll be honest with you, I know about 5% about it that I should know about it. Yeah. Maybe when all that kind of fat that we have that's still lingering out there that will be gone from the Coutinho contract is gone, maybe that frees us up to put the extra zero maybe on the end of Kamara's contract and give him what he's wants. So I'm not too worried about it now on the 7th of March 2025, but if we go to the 7th of March, because his contract is up, obviously is there until 2026, if I'm not mistaken. If we're here on the 7th of March 2026, he hasn't signed, I'll be going, yeah, he's on his way to Barcelona for free, and he's probably signed a pre-contract agreement in January without us even knowing. So I think this off-season will show an awful lot. And also, maybe the club are looking at him going, are you going to be the same player you were before you did your cruise shit? And like, are you going to be hobbled with injuries over the next 12 months? So there's a bit of a feeling out period, I suppose, where his career is at the moment, knowing how good he is and maybe knowing his injury history. That's maybe something to take a look at. But I want him to sign. Like Mark, he's one of my favorite players. Every time he plays in the team, we tick like a Swiss clock. And he's pivotal to the way we play because we have that extra buffer zone at the back, and he's also getting more and more into kind of playing that ball forward and being more progressive as well. So he's a non-negotiable in the team at the moment for me, and hopefully he signs that contract and stays that way well into his 30s for Aston Villa.
Two things for me, Ryno. Jacob's article today, actually, Neil, said it was 2 years left, Jacob Tanswell's, but I was actually pretty sure it was I was pretty sure it was a year myself, so I don't know if that might have been a printing error from Jacob. He doesn't make too many mistakes, but I'm almost certain he only had a year because I was looking at this. We were talking about it, Ryno, wasn't it?
2007. It's June 2007. Yeah. 2027. Sorry.
Yeah, Jacob doesn't get a lot wrong, now, to be fair to him. But I was very worried about it. I thought he was going into his last year till I read that article. This is what I thought for the last few months. I brought up with Ryan and Tess a few times in our WhatsApp group saying, they better get it sorted this summer. He's in his last year. But I think Neil makes a good point there as well. This is March, like where we are right now. It's not the time to be discussing with Kamara because Kamara is a Champions League level player. There's no doubt about that. He's in no rush to talk about that until he knows where we are. We need to know where they are, but there's loads going on. We don't need to. If it is 2 years, that changes things a little bit, doesn't it? Like it's not panic. And look, if someone does come in from, we're going to get top dollar from. That's the reality of it. And we need to be in the Premier League or the Champions League to be keeping these players, and that's just, we know that, and that's just reality, isn't it?
And I don't think he's definitely not going to be the PSR sale this off season. I think, and we won't get into even thinking about that kind of stuff. But there are people out there who know more about this that say that we still have someone else to sign. I don't want to start a scrap in the comments because every time we bring this up, everyone's like, "How can we've sold Durant?" I absolutely have no idea at this stage how it works. And the amortization of over the course of a 3-year period now that's going to come in with squad cost ratios. I was reading it last night now, and this is needlessly complicated, but most accounting is, and I definitely don't have a head for numbers as much as I would like, specifically when there's pound signs in front of them, because I'm brutal with money. So I leave that to the professionals. Absolutely leave that to professionals. It's one of the reasons why I'm not down in Australia with you guys, because at the time you had to have X amount of thousands in your bank account before you could actually fly, I think, or before you went and you got your visa. And I kept on dipping into it the whole time, so I could never. And I was like, I'll stay here in Ireland. It's not so bad. It's a bit wet, but I'll stay here. Otherwise, I'd be down in Australia with you lads.
Obviously we thought you Neil for a short time, so it's good that Neil gets to stay on. So I'm just going to kind of go back a little bit and have a quick chat about this Bruges game because we haven't covered a little bit. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into it. I'm more right on to talk to you about Bruges themselves. Some very good players there, isn't there? I was pretty impressed with them. Neil, I know you touched off your podcast about the two lads in the middle. So, Ryno, do you want to tell us a little bit about them? Because they were extremely impressive.
Yeah, they've been, and we played them before, so we knew what we were coming up against. And it's funny when you come against these teams, and they're a bit of a mixed bag or an unknown quantity for me because I don't get to watch a lot of, European football anymore with the time differences and stuff. So being in the Champions League this year, so I've been paying a bit more close attention. And the teams like Club Brugges are just, again, we talked about teams like Brentford and their scouting network, but Club Brugges are probably in a similar vein, aren't they, where they're picking up players from different countries, lower leagues, blooding them early, getting these young guys in, and they've been a handful every time we've played them. Even the game in the week, Thursday morning, was just, 3-1 is an amazing result for us, and I'm over the moon with it because I would have taken a draw before the game. But there were some hairy moments in there, and they've got some quality players, and yeah, it caused us all sorts of issues. I think you touched on it, Matt. I think the subs, the quadruple subs, I think the back four didn't look comfortable with Disassi at right back, and that was causing us a few issues. But I think once we made the subs, I thought we looked a lot more comfortable back there. But yeah, the one thing I do want to touch on, and I missed it at the time, was the Tyrone Mings clearance. And I sort of caught it, like obviously watched the first half, then had to go to work because it's like 6:30 in the morning. You got to work, and then watched the second half when I got home after work, and just started seeing, these things popping up on social media about Tyrone Mings' clearance. Oh, what clearance? I must have missed that. And then, yeah, unbelievable. It's like one of them moments that just, if that goes in, just Club Brugges just all over us then, aren't they? And the game possibly changes again. And yeah, just unbelievable for a player like Tyrone Mings to come back in after the first game against Bruges, the handball or picking the ball up and it produce something like that. It was just incredible. And yeah, for me, that was probably as best result we could have wished for, really, isn't it? 3-1 away and getting back to Villa Park now in the week. But yeah, they're very impressive. And Neil touched on it earlier in the pod. This isn't over. We're Villa supporters. We've been here before. We've been burnt before. So nothing's a given, is it? Even, with a healthy lead 3-1, I'm not taking anything for granted. They've got enough players there who can hurt us. And all you need to do is have an off day against those guys. And yeah, they can score quite quickly. They've got threats all over the pitch.
I got up at 2:00 in the morning. Neil, watched the game and went to work. And I got home from work and I went for a little run because I was so buzzing from the game. And I texted Paddy after and I said, when I was out for the run, I listened to you in Paddy's podcast, your post-match reaction. How fun is it doing pods after a win? Like yourself and Paddy, you covered it so well. I was saying to Paddy, just listening to the pod made you feel good because there's nothing better than that buzzing win after a win. You got to do it straight after the game and stuff. And you just made us feel like all the fans feel like, and it was really good. And Paddy was saying how much he enjoys doing a podcast after a brilliant win like that. And just, it's tremendous, isn't it? Like, it is great the way when you get to go together like that straight after a game. And, it's just real emotion, like when you do it straight live after the game. And you must have really enjoyed that one because let's look, there's no denying the performance was sketchy, but that's a perfect way. You can't dress it up. That's a perfect way result. Like anyone, as Jose Mourinho used to say, you can have the ball, we'll take the 3 points. It doesn't matter away from home. You've got to. But I just wanted to get your touch on that, Neil, because it really sounded like yourself and Paddy were enjoying doing that podcast, and I really, really, really enjoyed listening. As I do every episode, but
look, after Paddy's like the weather vane for Villa fandom as well. When Paddy can come on, he can be thunder as well at times. But Paddy absolutely. He lives and breathes and loves Aston Villa, and he's like that man is like the money that man spends a year on following Aston Villa is just something cruel. But it's great. It's great to be able to come on directly afterwards. Now, sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't get it right, and sometimes I'd often start saying stuff in the post-match podcast, and then I go in and watch it again, and I went, "Oh, Jesus, I was completely wrong about that." That player actually had a good game or a bad game or whatever the case was. But that's fine. That's the emotion. That's what people talk about in the pub afterwards. That's what people talk about. You come out of the ground, and the first thing is you've got that raw emotion, you've got that raw happiness where you're there with your mate, and you're like, "Oh, wasn't this fella going? Do you remember that? Do you remember that shot that fella took? Oh, what about Mogart when he came out? All that stuff. You're jumping around from topic to topic, and we don't. There's never anything in the post-match podcast. Well, there's never anything in any of our podcasts usually that is kind of scripted as such, but there's never anything that we say, oh, we have to touch on here now. In the post-match stuff, Paddy will have his go at the ref if he feels it's warranted, or he'll praise the ref if he feels it's warranted. And we kind of just talk like we're fellas down in the pub, and it's great because if I didn't have that debrief session, even after a loss as well, sometimes, I'd be a bit cranky indoors. I'd be a bit cranky with, get the kids up to bed 15 minutes early. Why? Just get them up to bed. No, there's a Villa last. But sometimes, it's just cathartic to kind of, in a good and a bad way. Because other times I'd be inside and I'd be like, chocolate for everyone, at 4:00, and then they'd be bouncing off the walls and we'd go to sleep as well. So it's good to kind of get that burst of emotion out of you after a game, especially when following the team means so much to us and to you guys and to every Villa fan. It's really part of. I always find that when you're following a team that is, I suppose, say it like Aston Villa, that are up and down. Some for periods, for 5 or 7, 6 year periods, we're up. Then for 10-year periods, we're down. you have to make hay while the sun shines. You have to celebrate your wins, and you have to be happy when you should be happy.
100%.
Because there'll be a lot of times we'll be walking around with the cloud over your head, and it's those times that it's very easy to kind of go, fuck this, I'm not supporting Villa anymore. I'm not doing it. I'm not taking it as seriously anymore. But when you go through the Steven Gerrards as managers to get to the Unai Emerys, that's where the emotion kind of comes from, and the happiness comes from. And Unai Emery is absolutely knocking it out of the park, and as a whole for Aston Villa. And as long as he's creating wins and happy moments, we'll be smiling 5 minutes after the final whistle goes. Anyway, that's for sure.
And Ryan, Neil always says in his podcast, and I love it, is this because it's the sentiment I have as well, is if you can't enjoy the wins, like what is the point of all? What is the point of it all? This
famous man, you'll know, Mark, this is going to go way over all your podcast listeners' heads, but a famous man from Limerick called Kieran Carey told me that he was one of the best hurlers to ever come out of Limerick. He said that to me. We were training a team together, and there was a game the next week, and he said to the team, he goes, lads, go out and enjoy yourselves for 3 or 4 hours tonight, because you have to enjoy the wins, because they won't come around forever. And it always kind of stuck with me, enjoy your wins, because nothing is ever guaranteed or given.
We jump on there, Ryan, don't we? Like in the WhatsApp, our private WhatsApp group for the podcast, just be alive after a game for about 5 hours at work.
And it's true, we're in a really good period that we haven't seen for a long time, and you still pinch yourself, don't you? Where we're at, Champions League football, quarterfinal of the FA Cup, still fighting in the league for European places. Like, it's a good time for us. Unai Emery in charge, great owners. Like, there's a lot of people envious of us at the moment, and a lot of different clubs looking at us thinking, we've all got mates who support other clubs, and I'm sure you fellas are the same. Got people texting you, messaging, and everyone sort of loves Villa at the minute with Unai Emery there, and loves watching us, and it's an amazing time for us.
It's funny actually that you mentioned that, because I'm doing a piece for the Spurs podcast. They've reached out, so Spurs fans are on the ledge at the moment with regards to like their team not performing really well and their ownership and stuff like that. And 3 years or 4 years ago, we would have been looking at Daniel Levy going, oh my God, imagine if we had a Daniel Levy, somebody who's able to just bully people in the market and so on. And he does, and he's a good operator. But the topic of conversation is I'm on it from a Villa point of view. You have a Newcastle fan, you have an Everton fan, you have a Brighton fan, and talking about their ownership structures, and having the discussion around that about how our ownership structure has changed over the last 10 years, of Doug Ellis to Randy Lerner to the criminal, what's his name, Tony Jaa to Nassif Suarez and Wes Edens. And it's a great story to be able to tell of Villa with. It's like Deadly Doug was always known as being tight. He wouldn't go. Yeah. He was never going to bankrupt the club. And Villa fans were like, oh, we can see everybody else spending money. Why aren't we doing it? And you put your name on a stand and everything like that. And there was a bit of apathy towards that. And then Randy Lerner comes in and then just cuts the strings off the club when his own personal life started to hit a speed bump, which is understandable. And then he sells for whatever money he can get to somebody who basically was a charlatan from China, and now we've got the richest man in Egypt, one of the richest men in Africa, and a financial wizard from the States. So it's like Aston Villa, as I said before. You've got your 6-7 years up, and you've got your 10 years when you're down. Now we're on our 6-7 years up, and hopefully these guys staying over the club will be there until I'm in a box in 50 years' time.
You see Wes Edens now at the Milwaukee's Bucks games, and he's wearing Villa training tops. Like, that's incredible for the club. You're going to have Americans going, oh, who's this club? Or you're going to have Milwaukee Bucks like saying, right, I'm a Villa fan now.
And that's exactly it. Look, I can't understand how Giannis, how the Greek Freak hasn't been in a Villa jersey, just spotted somewhere in a Villa jersey with like Rashford 9 on the back of it, like somewhere, his big 7'12" kind of frame. But like, it's all that kind of stuff. It's those little subtle things, like get a Villa shirt on, bloody, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of somebody who's got a big, like Kim Kardashian or something. Clubs are doing that. They're trying to get out there into that American market where money is no object. And, we're doing it slowly but surely. And hopefully, we continue to do that and help grow our revenues in that way as well.
Yeah, the American market is so important to commercial stuff. A little story there. I went to visit home a year or two ago, and we done, they had the Waterford Crystal tour down Waterford, and my daughter was mad for the glass blowing. She used to watch a documentary, so I took her you can do the tour and you can watch them doing the glass blowing and stuff, and then you obviously finish in the souvenir shop after. And the price of these things, it's like Neil for the Irish Open. They've all them on display now and stuff. But the Americans are in there. They are spending money on this water crystal like drunken sailors. Like you wouldn't be the queues out the door, man. It was incredible. And I was like, these lads just on holidays. Like, what are the rich people in America spending on? You know what I mean? So it is the market. Like all the music, that's where they need to get. And I just that kind of brought me to a little point. Obviously, Chris Heck, he gets his bashing, whatever. Look, I'm not going to get involved in that because that's like people live really close. My situation is different. I've spent a lot of money to go back and see a game. I do it. I'm lucky enough. It takes me a few months to get the money together. I'm lucky enough I can, but I can understand people's complaints that I live in there and who probably went to the games. I grew up. My own father was like a season ticket holder at Everton in a low economic area of Liverpool, brutal for a long, long time. And he said when he was growing up, didn't matter if you were a road sweep or an accountant, didn't matter on match day. Everybody was the same, and that's going. But Chris Heck was brought in to do a job, whether we like it or not. He was hired, so we're obviously annoyed at him, but the owner's going to be very happy with him. It's he's doing his job, and he's not here to make friends. And I think they're expecting. I was reading in the Athletic there earlier now. They're expecting a big, massive jump in the revenue side of things for us. So, I'm never going to say anyone you have to enjoy it because I can understand people's financial situations, and I know people who have said they cannot afford a season ticket, and you can't help but feel sorry for these people. They've went for 20 years, but on the flip side, if you want to compete with Man City, so it's a massive balance juggling that for the club, but
you're dead right, Mark, because and that goes back to the American markets and all that. In the interim, while you're building, you're going to have to build your revenues at home before you build them globally. That's not it's genuinely £97 for, I went over to the Celtic game. £97 for a ticket is steep. I'm not going to sit there, but I stay away. I Paddy has way more of I always let Paddy go to town on this because he's a season ticket holder. He goes over 18 to 20 times a year, and an average year sometimes he goes over 30 times a year. I don't, but I feel like I'm kind of a small bit hypocritical giving out about it because it's not my lived experience, and that's fine. And people will have different thoughts on that as well. I'm very much on the side of somebody who is going there every week and now is being priced out of it. I absolutely agree with that. But I would love to see that this would change, and I know prices very rarely go down anymore. Once they go up, they very rarely go down. I would love to see that they would stagnate very much so, and stagnate quickly as our global brand grows. We should this time next year there should be a sponsor's name on Bodymore Heat. There just should be. We're every single other team that's competing at the top are getting their revenues from the commercial side of things. They've sponsored everything. They've placed everything is sponsored, and Villa are a small bit behind on that. But you don't get that sponsorship without the success. Let's say Villa let's think big here. Let's say Villa beat Liverpool in the Champions League quarter-final, get to a Champions League semi-final. You want to stick to beat away the people looking to sponsor Bodymore Heat, after that. And that's what it takes. It takes a moment where people stand up and go, wait a minute, that Bayern game wasn't a fluke. These guys are the real deal here. And it's because you've got the market of the Premier League as well here that's a thing. I'm all for it, lads. I know people won't like it either. Fortress Villa Park, get Wes Edens to sponsor it himself, or his investment company to sponsor it himself. 200 million a year.
It'll still be known as Villa Park.
Mark, this is close to your heart as well. When was the last time you were at Super Value Park when you went back to Cork? You were never there, were you?
I was there for the first day of the new opening, but
there's no such place in Cork. But it goes it'll still be Villa Park, and to me, I think that it's a no-brainer. Get the sponsorship. Jump into the corporate world from that point of view, and then take the burden off the fans. The burden off the fans, because you can't there is a finite amount of money in the fan base in comparison to where it is in the corporate world as well. Yeah, and that's a good point there, Ryan, isn't it? We all, for nostalgia reasons, would hate to see Villa Park being renamed, of course, but it'll always be Villa Park. And as Neil rightly points out, if that can go some way to knocking the ticket
Mm.
for people, you're going to have to go for it eventually, aren't you? Like, and
and the landscape's changed a lot, isn't it? Like, it's changing every season. Rules are changing. Clubs are moving forward. Every sport isn't it? Like, you look at different platforms now, and I don't know. You look at Netflix now; they've got WWE wrestling on there, and it's just the whole thing. Spurs had a documentary. Arsenal have had one. Like, there's more access to clubs. Clubs are finding different ways now, aren't they, to sort of sell their brand, and that's kind of what it is now, isn't it? A football club is like a brand and something you've got to market, like we're saying. And yeah, it is sad seeing people missing out on season tickets and stuff. But again, you want the club to be as successful as it can be and compete on all fronts. And to do that, sometimes you got to do things that are probably going to rub people up the wrong way. But one thing you can say about the ownership and the people at the club now, though, is they are trying, their hardest to push in every different avenue, aren't they, and push the club forward. And that hasn't always been the case with our owners, the ones you just reeled off. So it's a breath of fresh air for me. And like you say, I'm obviously a lot removed living in Melbourne, but I love seeing the club develop and push on, and I want to see us compete. And there's going to be some tough decisions going forward, but I think that's the way it's got to be, unfortunately, if you want to keep, dining at the top table and getting into the Champions League, and that's where we want to be as a club, isn't it? Really, that's why we watch. Feel like to see success, see us lifting trophies and winning games, isn't it? That's why we're here. I think that's what it boils down to.
You're dead right, Ryan. And this is the first time in my Villa following life that we have the right people who capitalize on our success. Like 94, 96, we had Doug Ellis there. And I think there was very much a kind of a 1970s running a local business feel to it, because that's kind of what he did. He was a travel agent who made it big and sent package holidays out to Spain. And there's nothing wrong with that. He was a very successful businessman, but he was a successful businessman to a point, whereas Manchester United went into a global stratosphere. Arsenal, then when Wenger came in, went into a global stratosphere, and they kind of went with the Premier League. We kind of stayed very colloquial and very kind of nodal based within Birmingham and in and around the local areas, which is great, because that's why we've got such a fan base that loves our club and feels almost personally offended when anybody gives out about our club. And that's a beautiful thing to have in 2025. So I'm kind of always torn between the whole, should we have embraced the global corporate side of things quicker? Or would that have diluted our fan base to the point of maybe some of the teams I've rattled off there, some half their stadium is full with fans essentially, and half of them are full with tourists. And do we want to become that, or do we need to become that? And I don't know the answer to those questions at all. But it's the ownership we have at the moment have a track record of capitalizing on success and capitalizing on making people buy into success. So we just need to keep the success coming, and I think that will help us in the long run. So, and that's the beautiful part about it is, with the business we've done over January, that is very much the case. Asensio or Rashford come in to help us succeed and to try and drive us over the line to get into 7th or 6th or 5th place, maybe win an FA Cup, maybe have a rattle off a Liverpool or PSG or even we might get beaten by Bruges. I'm not counting my chickens there, but to make that headline around the world, and that'd be nice for Aston Villa, because as I say, we had it against Bayern. It felt great to have everyone talking about us against Bayern, but that's catching them cold maybe the first day. Now it's time to do it in the business end of the competitions, and fingers crossed Unai Emery can mastermind something like that after we make sure we get over the banana skin that is Bruges.
I have one question for you both before I let you go, lads, right? Because obviously we all know Bruges can overturn this result, right? But I, for one, would be absolutely very, very pissed off at the team if they throw from a 3-1 disposition. Looking at those two cup competitions, I mean, 3-1 away. Look, Bruges are a very good side, but they're still the side we would have picked to take in the next round before the draw. There's no doubt about that, right? We got 3-1 away, and then we got Preston in the FA Cup, the only non-Premier League team, right? So we can have no complaints about the look of a draw. We've got a rotten look in the past, and we've got to look this time, right? That's not to say we can't piss it all down the toilet either. But let's take, for argument's sake, we overturn it. We win 1-0 Villa Park, and we're through to the next round. Who do you want to play next round? PSG or Liverpool? And why?
Liverpool.
Same.
Non-entity.
Yeah, Liverpool, I'd agree. I think PSG have sort of come away from their usual mold of they've still got superstars, obviously, but they've sort of changed the way they're going about it a little bit. And I quite like what they're doing at the moment. And like you guys say, known entity in Liverpool, I think, we'd fancy ourselves at home. Yeah, Liverpool for me, mate.
Yeah, because I've watched a fair bit of PSG this season because I find them very interesting because they have gone the opposite way now with Mbappe gone, Messi's gone, Neymar's gone. They're a real team now. And I think the signing of Kvaradona, the old Kvaratskhelia, was a very, very intelligent signing because the pace in that front three is frightening. I don't know that any of you watched the Liverpool PSG game. Yeah. PSG were phenomenal in that game. Dembele is just having the season of his life, and he made absolutely bits of Robertson. I mean, I haven't seen it. No, Robertson hasn't having the best season he's had all this year, granted, but Dembele just went past him time and time again, and just the way we're defending this season, I think I'd probably prefer Liverpool over two legs. That might come back to bite me in the arse, but I just, as Neil says, known entity. I was kind of hoping they wouldn't be 13 points clear in the league by the time we played them, and that maybe they might be a bit tied up in the league as well, and that it could be a good time to catch them. But I think if you asked Emery secretly, I think he'd probably pick Liverpool too, because he's shown he can get something against them at home. But away is obviously the tricky tie. So we're all happy on that. And Neil, I asked Brian this last week, if we get to the FA Cup final, obviously the teams have changed since me and Ryan, but who do you want out of who's left?
Palace to exercise an awful lot of demons, because I can't remember when the chips were down going against Palace and then coming away going, right, we did the job. Exercise all your demons in the FA Cup. And I think, you know what? I think for all the bluster that a lot of the media talk about of having, the two biggest teams, whether it's a Liverpool Man City final, I think everybody's bored of those finals. I think a final between a Brighton and a Bournemouth, or a Liverpool or a Villa and a Palace would be incredible for the sport. It would be a throwback 30 years ago, like when you had two teams that were, that weren't perennial final goers in the final. I think that's something like that is what the FA Cup needs, because the FA Cup is very much at risk of going the route of the League Cup as well, of being very much the secondary or tertiary competition. Because like you could say at the moment, it's the tertiary competition. The first competition is winning the league, second competition is getting the top four, and then the third one is FA Cup, and it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that, even though we have treated it like that in previous years. So give me anyone but Man City, because not that I don't think we can go and beat Man City. I'd just like there to be that old style throwback final would be great.
Right now, I think
both sets of fans actually care about the final.
That's what I was going to say. I think that's really important as well, is actually two clubs and sets of fans who actually want to be at the final as well. The atmosphere would be pumping then, wouldn't it? Villa, Palace, Bournemouth, all these fans are hungry for silver, hungry for a final, whereas you got your Liverpool, Man Cities that, like you say, they sort of don't really treat the competition as a traditional FA Cup, as something that they want to win anymore, really. And I think their fans sort of show that as well. And for me, I'd love to see two teams, who traditionally don't get to the final, get there, having a day out. It's just, and just enjoying it and just sort of rebirthing the FA Cup, like Neil says. I think it needs it. I think it has lost a bit of its magic. And we were talking about it, offline, about I used to love the day, just, get up in the morning, the build-up would be on from like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and you'd just be sitting there all day watching FA Cup build-up. There'd be the suits, teams would have songs, wouldn't they? They'd go and record a song for the day and come out in some dodgy suits and then play the game. So, I love that sort of stuff.
I think with the fact that we've got ties to the royal family, and again, kudos Ryno on your mum meeting the future king, I think he should decree from his throne that it is mandatory for white suits, cream suits on FA Cup final day, like Liverpool did, because like everybody remembers that. Everyone remembers that.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks very much to everybody in the live chat there that joined us today. I know it's a tricky time. It's late here at night in Australia, and it's obviously a work day in back in the UK. So thanks everyone for joining in. Thanks again to James, Mark, and Sharma for their comments in the comments. Ryno, do you just want to give any listeners a chance where they can find us on the socials? Anyone that will be listening to us on the stream?
Yep, so you can get us at Villa Pride Down Under on Instagram, and on X we're at Pride Down Under. And if you can, get on our Facebook page as well and give us a follow on there. We're trying to get the live pods running on Facebook. I think this one is possibly live on Facebook at the moment, but we are trying to grow across all platforms. So if you can get on there, guys, and give us a follow and a subscribe, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And just hit the follow and the subscribe. Neil, thanks a million for coming on, mate. And
thank you, mate.
As I said, I always say this, unless there's someone living under a rock, they probably have listened to your pod before they've heard this pod. But if you want to just give people a bit of a run where they can find you there before.
Yeah, at Love McGrath Pod, you'll see it down there. You find us on Twitter. Not as active on Twitter as I used to be, but YouTube and Spotify, anywhere else you can find podcasts. It's the beauty about being the only podcast with Paul McGrath in the name. All you have to do is type that in, and you'll see the logo here. Like, why can't I get my lefts and rights correct on this? see the logo here behind me. So as long as you see that, you'll be able to find us.
And I'm just going to end again with wishing all those in Queensland over the next day or two, because it is very, very serious up there. So thanks, guys. Up the Villa. And Neil, do you want to sign us away with your old famous saying, mate?
Yeah. So in the meantime, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.